Hello. Yeah, I gotta tell me if my mic act up because you know how it is. Okay. And Makale, I need to make sure somebody can hear me out there in the world. Can you bring the artists, the healers, the mothers, the fathers, the parents, the soul medicine workers, bring the algorithm hackers, bring the witches brew, bring the Christians. So tonight I'm called to talk about Black ethics, and I teased it when I did one of the outdoor videos last week. Um, Maybe even before that. So I'm trying to see if I'm going to be able to charge this phone. Yeah. So Black ethics. So we got to this topic because we've been talking about ethical non-monogamy, ENM, right? And the more I have learned about this relationship model, the more I have thought about Black relational ethics, right? And I thought about how we have basically kind of defaulted to Western ethics. And I was okay, like, are their ethics going to be compatible with ours? I was just wondering if most ethics classes are focused on Kant and, all these old white men, um, these dead white men, as a lot of these activist students like to say. Um, what about everybody else? What does everybody else have to say about ethics? And how do we understand what our ethics are based on who we are, how we identify, our communities, etc. I'm gonna take this out just to make sure that the audio is working because until I see somebody in here, I don't know for sure if you guys can hear me. Okay, now we got somebody. I want you to tell me if you can hear me. Can I get a thumbs up if you can help me with that? Who's in the chat? Because I got a thumbs up. What's up? What's up? All right. So just tell me how the sound is. Can you tell me how the sound is? I'm gonna plug in my mic so that you can hear the voice over the music. Can you still hear me? Thumbs up. Can I get another thumbs up if you can hear me? Can y'all hear me? Yay, nay? Comment if not. Comment if not. Maybe I'll just sing while I wait for a confirmation. Can I get a confirmation that you can hear me? Okay. Y'all making me nervous. I'm about to take the mic off. I'm gonna take the mic off, but I'm gonna just breathe and maybe do a little music as well. Let me just get it come back in. Should I be assuming y'all can't hear me? Can you hear me, yay or nay? Maybe you wouldn't be in here if you couldn't hear me, so I'm about to just take this thing off, I swear. You're so sweet. Can you hear me? Can you confirm that you can hear my voice? And if you're not responding to that, I have to guess that you can't. Okay. I'm going to take this out. Can you hear me now? Can I get a confirmation that you can hear me? Okay, great. Okay, so I guess something. My microphone is a whole trip with my phone. But welcome to the sanctuary. Thank you for being here and for joining me. If you just randomly got served this by the algorithm, let me know. If you are a subscriber, let me know. It's good to know what's bringing you here, what's bringing you back. I'm just using the vessel. Just expressing what I've been told. So shout out to Ayodele, my sister, who celebrated her 40th birthday this past weekend. Well, it was her birthday earlier in the calendar, but happy 40th birthday, my darling. I miss you, love you, and I love all my babies. And yeah, we're all gonna have to come back together on some land soon. I have been wanting to host retreats in Connecticut. And so if you are in Brooklyn, if you're on the East Coast and you are looking for an escape, a moment of like whimsy in the woods with Black people, not really the woods, but like, kind of close to the woods. Um, if you're interested in something like that, let me know. But I'm going to talk about how we got to this topic of Black ethics. And I may have touched on this, but wasn't sure about the sound. So we were talking about ethical non-monogamy, right? So I am exploring ethical non-monogamy. I'm meeting people who that is their lifestyle, you know? And this is forcing me to get more education on the subject, right? Because I had to understand if it was something that I, could participate in, right? And so it's interesting to learn how organic ethical non-monogamy is, in a sense. Like, it's just like to me, it just feels like a normal ways to do relationships. Like, when you look at the history of the world and the history of the history of, y'all gonna make me turn off the chat if you don't act right. The history of the world and the relationship structures that have been common in many places where people were thriving, right, before they encountered interference. When you look at those spaces, you see a very intentional sort of care, right? And that form of care is far more important to the preservation of the community or of the nation, of the people, than the structure that says one man, one wife, There is value potentially. I mean, my thing is, I believe that everybody comes with your own constellation. I believe that you are like, you have a certain type of identity when you get here, and you may explore and evolve and find out more, and you may unpeel, new layers of yourself and be like, oh, I could do that too, you know? I wish that for you if you want it, right? But I'm definitely an explorer. I've always been very, very curious and just eager to find the truth, try and find the secret to, the universe, right? Like, as far as us being able to live free. Like, I don't, for some people it don't bother them, but I can't mess with it, I'm just like, no, we have to get free. So, there is, we're all called to do what we're supposed to do. So I'm thankful for the opportunity to be able to share this space with you and just like, just share some of what I'm learning in my own inquiry and research and writing and storytelling, content making. If you need storytelling partnership, you should hit us up. We offer a lot of different consulting services, but storytelling is my superpower. All right. So we're looking at the, I want to start off with the canon, right? And so most of the time, like I was in college, if you went to college, you probably encountered the ethics, philosophy sort of options, right? At some point. And I remember taking like a philosophy class, and that shit was boring. Like, I don't know how I got through a lot of them classes, but it was so boring. Oh my God. Anyway, I guess it probably might have been interesting if it was like Black ethics, I might have been a little bit more invested, but I guess I thought initially that there might be a major divide. I was curious to understand the divide between the Kantian, the Western ethics that, we've kind of defaulted to in their world, and the indigenous ethics, right? And so how do we understand that? Well, who has been writing about, Black ethics and Black ethical culture and whatnot? And so I pulled up a few sources I want to share, but Milana Karenga comes up first and foremost. And I'm going to remember the name of his book. I think the title is Ma'at, and then it has to do with like the Black ethics of Ma'at, like the sort of foundation of Black ethics. So just a lot of really dope knowledge out there as far as like how we have been, strategizing and just, calculating how we take care of each other, with some forms of security. So Milana Karenga, here we go. Let me spend some time on that, and I'll give you some of the authors, additional authors. Okay, so this is under the section titled "The Moral Universe May Be Bigger Than the People Currently in the Room." I created this with my tools. This is one of the clearest places where African cosmologies can expand the conversation. In Ma'at, ethics is bound up with truth, justice, right order, and cosmic balance. Mulana Karenga explicitly reconstructs this tradition as classical African ethics in Ma'at, the moral ideal in ancient Egypt. Let me know if you've read that book or heard of it. So by Mulana Karenga, Ma'at, the moral ideal in ancient Egypt. I feel like this brother should be a doctor. I'm surprised they didn't put a doctor in front of his name. And if he isn't a doctor, somebody needs to give him an honorary. In Yoruba cosmology, moral life exists within relationships among the living. Among the living, ancestors' divinity, lineage, destiny, and worlds visible and invisible. Across various African traditions, land, ancestors, and unborn generations can belong to the world of obligation. And that creates a different question. When I make this decision, perhaps I shouldn't ask only, does this work for me? Maybe I should also ask, what does this produce in the community? What does this produce in the household? What energy does it transmit? Does it do any harm? What kind of harm does it do, right? So, Ma'at, Ubuntu, Iwakbale, Omoluabi in Yoruba. There's so many African and indigenous cultural systems that tap into something akin to Ma'at, to Ubuntu. And the primary difference that I have seen between the Western and the indigenous ethic systems is that indigenous ethics tends to have more of a focus on the land and ecology. But there are some Western, philosophies that do have a relationship with the earth, right? So that is something I'm learning more about, but I wanted to make sure to, at minimum, share some of the authors and what they've been working on and what they've published. And I am scrolling. Oh my God, this is like 10,000 pages. Okay. Thank you for your patience. Give me the authors again. Give me the authors again. I can't find it. Hi. Welcome. Thank you for the kind messages. I'm not going to pay attention to anything else. I'm from Nigeria. I'm from Yoruba land. Yoruba le mi, omo Yoruba le mi. Okay, so Malana Karenga, Ma'at, Classical African Ethics, Kwame Yekye, I gotta remember where he's from, but I believe he's Ghanaian. Akan Ethics, yes, obviously. Kwame Yekye, Akan Ethics, Personhood, Common Good, Moderate Communitarianism. Oh, Algeria, welcome to the chat, Algeria, bring your people. Welcome. Let me know if you've heard of any of these writers before. This is Ifeanyi Menkiti, Strong Communitarianism and Personhood. I'll put with their countries. Countries, origins. Okay, so I'm going to keep reading while it generates that. So, Kwesi Wiredu, Akan Philosophy. This is my first time today encountering some of these names, so I'm going to learn how to say them properly, so forgive me if I butcher your name, but Kwesi Wiredu, Akan Philosophy, Consensus, Conceptual Decolonization. Ifeanyi Menkiti, Strong Communitarianism and Personhood. Okay, so I was going to get the Kwame Ghana, Kwesi Ghana, Ifeanyi Nigeria, Igbo, Mogobe Ramose from South Africa, Ubuntu Philosophy. Let me see if that's the proper name. Yeah, Thaddeus Metz. Thaddeus Metz is from the US, Ubuntu, African Relational Ethics. There's a lot of literature out there. I'm just going to say some more names. Sophie Bosede Oluwole, Yoruba, Nigeria, Yoruba Philosophy, Ethics, Indigenous Knowledge. John A.I. Bewaji, Yoruba Ethics, Moral Philosophy, African Philosophy. So there's a longer list and I could read everybody. Oyeronke, Madame Dr. Oyeronke Oyumi. I don't know why they don't put doctor for these people's names, but you have to presume that most of them, they either have a PhD or they've done PhD level work or beyond. Marimba Ani, I gotta shout her out. Urugu and so much more. She's just a gem. Patricia Hill Collins, Bell Hooks, Emily M. Towns, Katie Geneva Cannon, Nkiru Nzegwu, Ifi Amadium. See, I jumped down and she was right there. Okay, so these are some of the people that have been writing about Black ethics. And so when we look at what they have been wrestling with, they have basically, the tension is that a lot of ethics is now dominated by religion, right? Religious ethics. And so you have a lot of folks who are culturally displaced, psychically displaced, because they are psychically separated from their origin myth, their origin identity. And so it just creates a situation where it becomes very hard for you to sort of access your highest power, right? Let me come back to the list. So the psychic separation, the physical separation, we have such a struggle to even get back to a sense of self as Black and Indigenous people. Like, that is the key struggle. That is the biggest thing that folks are finding, right? A path back to ourselves, back to understanding who we truly are, not who we've been told to be or who we've been labeled, but who we were created by our Creator to be, right? So Black Sacred Futurity creates a container within which we can engage with these different aspects of the sacred as it relates to Black liberation, right? There are so many disciplines that sort of, just sort of like flirt with the ideas of Black liberation, the spiritual of it, the spirituality of it, the love of it, the relationships of it, right? The ethics of it all. And so considering that the imperial virus has effectively harmed us for the last 400, 500 years plus, we have struggled to find our ways back to each other. We have struggled to reconnect at the most original level, at the most base level, because we ourselves are disconnected from ourselves, many of us, right? So the work of Black Sacred Futurity, it is the decolonization of the Black soul, the African soul, into a path that can take us into a liberated future where we actually love ourselves materially. We really materially take care of each other at scale. Like, we're doing a good, decent amount in some circles, but we got to do 1,000 times more if we really want to make it. I just came to keep it a stack with you tonight. I hope you're ready for some truth. So we have to understand what ethics we're dealing with, right? So I talked about exploring ethical non-monogamy, learning about it, and that word ethical. When I was doing that last live about it, I was like, bruh, who's ethic? And so when you meet people and you're trying to figure out what your guidelines are for that relationship, you are forced to expose or to explore or to interrogate your ethics, right? And then I have to ask myself, well, where do we get our ethics? Are we getting them from the church, from the mosque, from the culture of Western hegemony, or where are we getting our culture? Where are we getting our ethics from? I would love to hear you tell me that. If you have some specific a particular ethic, or if you have a way of describing your ethic that is sort of, I don't know, if you have whatever you perceive as your ethic, if you feel like you have one, I would love to hear about that, right? You could leave it in the comments, but the idea that we each have our own set of rules, you know, and values and like deal breakers and things like that that we really hold on to, especially in this time where mass exploitation is like, you know, just cultural currency supposedly. Um, so we're all trying to learn how to come back to each other, to navigate each other, to be kind to one another, to heal together, right? To take space as needed and come closer as needed, right? So Black Sacred Futurity helps us to activate a lot of this knowledge around Black intimacy, Black wellness and relationships, right? Instead of that narrative that we've always been exposed to of just like, oh, Black people, you know, can't get along. What does it look like for us to create the alternative, you know? So that is, you are so sweet. Y'all are so sweet. That is, that is what we're sussing out here, you know? So I gave you a few titles. I'm trying to remember where we left off with that. But I talked about Mugobe, Ramose, Thais Met, Sophie. Yeah, so we've given you all the names. So I think within each of us, we have to search for our own ethic. And I always talk about this exercise that I was given at Yale in multiple different workshops and courses, where they basically had you figure out what your values are, right? It was like they would ask you, what are your top 5 values? It's an exercise. If you've never done it before, I highly recommend it. What are your top 5 values? You name them. You get them sort of outside of your head. And then you start taking them off one by one. And you see which one you're left with, right? Like if you have to take off one, which one do you take off first? And if you have to take off another one, right? You take off the values from the list. Which one is your number one? What is your number one value, and why is that? Why do you think that is? I'd love for you to talk about that, or in the comments, just what are your values? Right? Every time I did the exercise, I came back with the same thing. Transparency was number one. And before that, I wouldn't have guessed that necessarily. I didn't know, right? Transparency. And so I had to ask, how transparent am I? Am I fully transparent? Where else do I need to be more translucent, you know, in my life? And so it's a process, it's a journey of identifying, you know, the bits and pieces of us that we may not have had access to before, we may not have known existed, but just healing and loving on ourselves kindly. That's Black Sacred Futurity. So this ethics question is, you know, I'm thinking about a Black ethics library. I am really curious if anybody's doing this work, you know. This is a download of like very recent. So it took all the energy I had to just get up on this camera. So I'm gonna do some more research on the canon. I'm really excited for this topic. And you know, y'all, I know y'all might feel like I jump all over the place with the topics. Maybe some of you are able to stay with it. But at the end of the day, you know, we always say here it's about liberation from within. Total liberation from within. That is the entire purpose of this space. And so whatever the spirit leads us to activate, to experience in order to arrive at total liberation from within, that is what we will prioritize in this space. So Pan-Africanism. So that's why, so that's part of what I put in the title, was a Pan-African, a Black Pan-African ethic, right? Because, and I'm going to be very particular about why I used those words, because there's a lot of division that is being sown by the imperial virus in Black communities right now, online communities, in-person communities. It is their number one strategy. Sow division, divide and conquer. Many of us know this, but we don't really know our ways around it. We don't necessarily see the division when it's emerging between us. We're not necessarily aware of it. So we allow these rifts to take place, and then we have, God forbid, somebody like Chadwick Boseman, and then it's it's heartbreaking to see that type of stuff happen so often. It's really, really, really like disturbing to me, and it's just so unfortunate, like the harmony, like what the harmony could generate if it was like the predominant experience in our communities. And I think that also starts within, the harmony within, making peace with yourself. Because if we're projecting distrust or mistrust onto someone else, there probably might be a little bit of it in us too, right? Whatever we don't like about somebody else, it might be activating something in us that we need to look at. You know, it's a process. But I want to give a little bit of an overview of what some of these thinkers have said as far as the Black ethics canon. Okay, so let me start on this section that talks about repair, right? And so I did an article for Time Africa magazine. When I get some responses or feedback on that article, then I'll do another one, right? But this was called, oh my goodness, why only African-centered leadership can deliver world peace. And I named it that way, and for very specific reason. I got to come back to the Pan-African, the Black Pan-African ethic language as well. Why only African-centered leadership can deliver world peace, right? And so I basically argued that because, Africa controls the majority of the minerals that are needed for the war machine, and Africa has a young population that is increasingly politicized and historicized, if that is a proper term, and understanding who they are and where they sit in the world and what they sit on. They're not just letting anybody just come and take it anymore. I gotta move because I don't like this dark spot that keeps showing up. They're not gonna take it anymore forever. It's just not. The time is up. But I am asking myself, what legal systems, like what is it about African legal systems that is inherently African as far as the ethic, right? These are all the questions that I'm just exploring on this topic. And I think it's important to learn ethics in any culture, right? To understand what the people who came before you have understood about relationships and how to engage and take care of each other, right? And so a lot of it is just passed down. We just learn from our parents and our community, our neighbors. But some of it is also drilled in through church, through mosque, whatever, right? So we have to ask ourselves, like, what is the highest ethic within me? Like, who am I according to my values? Who am I according to my choices? Who am I according to my offerings and my intentions and the thoughts and feelings that I hold about others, whether they've done me good or otherwise? Really, it comes down to like accepting ourselves, loving ourselves, understanding ourselves, recognizing ourselves, embracing ourselves. That is when we feel free enough to recognize and embrace the next person. And so whenever we're suppressing certain aspects of ourselves, it makes it a bit harder for us to give more or be more to others around us. I want to see, okay, I like this time that we're at. So I'm just like, okay, Brad, where are we landing? Okay, so I'll name some of the writers that were not on that African ethics canon. So, like I say, we tend to learn ethics from the Western perspective, and that tends to include their canon, Kant, Mill, and Aristotle primarily, right? And so when it comes to Black indigenous thought, we've gone through a lot of those authors. And now I want to talk about those who engage with the question of what we do when the world itself is unethical. That's Frantz Fanon, W.E.B. Du Bois, MLK, James Cone, Audre Lorde. I gotta remember which canon, they list here Winter and Mills, Liberation Ethics. So a lot of reading, and we started a reading group at BSAM. It's not necessarily open to the public, but if you're interested in participating in like a sort of like book club associated with the Afrofuturist movement, we'd love to talk to you about that. The kind of minds you would have access to with any proximity to this community is pretty incredible. So yeah, just thinking about the volume of things that need to be read in our communities, especially in Black intellectual communities and Black youth communities, and the rate at which we need to be consuming this knowledge quickly. So like readathons, and I'd love to know if anybody's doing readathons out there for Black kids, especially with like, you know, spiritually militant and otherwise militant literature. Colonization, I'm just going to start reading out random quotes from this research. Colonization was not merely the conquest of territory, it was an ethical interruption. I didn't like the word that they used, but it was an ethical interruption. Colonial systems displaced theories of personhood. Number one, baseline. You are not even a person. They displaced theories of obligation, kinship, land, gender. I mean, they just everything up, right? So this is the psychic split that I keep talking about, right? Like you've literally taken me out of the sense of my own wholeness by making me see myself as something other than what I am. So the ethics, I think I want to talk more about what is included as opposed to the questions that come up with African ethics. So this question of what makes someone a person, right? So in African ethics, Ifeanyi Menkiti famously argued that in many African conceptions, personhood is something one attains through ethical participation in communal life, rather than merely a biological status one automatically possesses. His formulation has generated a massive philosophical debate, including critiques by Gyekye and later African philosophers, right? So Descartes gives you, or Descartes, I think, therefore I am. Ubuntu / Menkiti gives you my humanity is realized through ethical relationship. These are competing ontologies of the human being. So this is where the rubber meets the road. You know, it's like, what do we believe about ourselves? What do we believe about our souls? What do we believe about our existence? That first and foremost determines what we believe about our future, what we are worthy of, what we may dream of, what is possible, what is within reach for us. So I just want to breathe and see if there's anything else that I want to close out with to just bring everything together. I'm sorry I'm so raspy tonight, y'all. I gotta go to sleep. I need to go to sleep. So we're just gonna breathe. So what sort of Black ethic takes us into the future? That's ultimately the question that we're seeking to answer here by doing all these, analyses. What Black ethic helps to ensure that we survive, that we connect, that we thrive, that we have access to each other and to land as the old world crumbles and some of us got to jump to the next thing? What sort of Black ethic? So my submission to answer that question, I would love to hear from you what you think is most important as far as like what sort of body of ethics or body of care knowledge or care intelligence would be most applicable to Black liberation at this time. But I love Ubuntu. I always say Ubuntu is my favorite word because it just means I am because you are. I am because we are, right? We exist through each other. And I think it is a very profound concept, a very profound truth, especially in the face of what the Ubuntu indigenous people of the planet have endured at the hands of people who don't believe in that, right? So we're talking about ontological clashes that determine whether you get to live or not. This is what the violence of academy and empire can translate into. I hope you're following me. Anyway, we need an ethic that drives us forward. I think I'll link the article in this description as well. We need an ethic that drives us forward, that keeps us united. Black solidarity. Shout out to the Black Solidarity Group at Yale. For Black solidarity to materialize, there has to be a sufficient shared ethic. And Ubuntu is what I propose because it is the most universal, according to my research as of now, it's the most universal ethic across indigenous communities around the world. It's how do we take care of each other? How do we persist into the future? How do we procreate and live in peace and have enough? How do we take care of Mother Earth? You know, like, y'all, I'm gonna go to sleep. I love you. I had to do my scriptures. Let me ask, which scriptures did you give me? Put them here. Put them here in Yoruba and English. Okay. Yes, like I've shared before, I'm aiming to give some Yoruba scripture at least once a day. It's forcing me to speak the language, that's for one. They gave me the YCE. I'm just going to go ahead and read it. This is 1 Corinthians 12:26 to 27. My tones are my biggest struggle with speaking Yoruba, so I'm just going to take my time here. You can read it in English. 1 Corinthians 12:26 to 27. Bieya. Bieya. Mi dodo. Bieya arakon. Re. Bieya arakon banje. Irora. They be messing up with the tones themselves. I'm gonna play it from the app. This is 1 Corinthians 12:26. Oh my goodness, okay. I'm gonna play it and try to get it to the exact spot if I can.
ṣùgbọ́n Ọlọ́run ti fi àwọn ẹ̀yà ara sí ara wa ó sì fi àkọ̀kan sí ibi tí ó fẹ́ kí ó wà. Gbogbo Ọlọ́run dá ẹ̀yà ara púpọ̀ ṣùgbọ́n ara kan ṣoṣo ni. Bí ó ti rí yìí, ojú kò lè sọ fún ọwọ́ pé èmi kò nílò rẹ. Bẹ́ẹ̀ ni orí kò lè sọ fún ẹsẹ̀ pé èmi kò. Àwọn ẹ̀yà bí ẹ̀yà ara kan bá ń jìyà, gbogbo àwọn ẹ̀yà ara yòókù á máa bá pín nínú ìyà náà. Tí a bá sì bọlá fún ẹ̀yà ara kan, gbogbo ẹ̀yà ara yòókù á máa bá yọ̀. Gbogbo yín jẹ́ ara Kristi, ẹnìkọ̀ọ̀kan yín sì jẹ́ ẹ̀yà ara ọ̀tọ̀ọ̀tọ̀ nínú ara Kristi.
So this is where I believe Paul is saying to the Corinthians that, we know you by your love for one another. I'm going to read the KJV. The KJV, 1 Corinthians 12:26 to 27. And whether one member suffer, all the members suffer with it, or one member be honored, all the members rejoice with it. Now ye are the body of Christ and members in particular. So I didn't read it myself, which I still need to do, but this is one of the key scriptures that mirrors Ubuntu, which is the African ethic that I'm basically advocating for, right? And so my experience and my sort of perception is that Ubuntu exists across every tradition that is serious about worshiping God and serving the divine. I just think that there's a lot of them that are very serious about that, and there is a core ethic of protection of human life, right? And then you have people who are the opposite of that, who are, the ones that are in power, right? So let me play the
Ọlọ́run
scripture
sì gbé
again
àwọn mìíràn kalẹ̀ nínú ìjọ
so that I
kí wọ́n máa
can,
jẹ́ olùrànlọ́wọ́ fún ara wọn.
okay, so I can do my assignment. We're gonna read this Yoruba together. So 1 Corinthians 12:26 in the BMYO version, the Modern Yoruba Bible. Let's go. I'm about to hit play.
Bí ẹ̀yà ara kan bá ń jìyà,
Biayara kombanjia. Biayara kombanjia. Okay.
gbogbo àwọn ẹ̀yà ara yòókù
Gbogbo àwọn ẹ̀yà ara yòókù. Biayara kombanjia. Gbogbo àwọn ẹ̀yà ara yòókù.
a máa bá a pín nínú ìyà náà.
A máa bá pín nínú ìyà náà. A máa bá pín nínú a máa bá pín nínú ìyà náà. Wow.
Tí a bá sì bọlá fún ẹ̀yà ara kan,
Tí a bá sì bọlá fún ẹ̀yà ara kan,
gbogbo ẹ̀yà ara yòókù a máa bá a yọ̀.
gbogbo ẹ̀yà gbogbo ẹ̀yà ara yòókù a máa bá yọ̀. Speaking Yoruba is a sport at a certain point. The way the speed. So that's the thing about this medium of conveying Yoruba. I look forward to hopefully a day when we have our own script soon, because I think that there's a mismatch in using the Latin alphabet. Anyway, friends, it's been a pleasure. If you're thinking about Black ethics, if you're thinking about Ubuntu, if you're building technology and you're thinking about these things, if you're building companies and you're thinking about these questions, we would love to be part of your, like, thought partner, whatever, right? I would say thought partnership, thought leadership is what we have most in abundance in our consortium here at NORLab. So if you are thinking about ethics, and how you run your business and how you run your home, if how you run your institution, get at us. This research, I'm not an expert on a topic, but we have a pretty extensive network of scholars and professors that we should be able to bring into conversation with you, in addition to our own synthesis and analysis. All right. What else you got? Go to northpress.org. Check out our work there. The Black Operating System, Portal X, Liberation from Within, the Liberation Algorithm, portalx.space. Go create an account. Check out the Superpower Calculator chatbot. Check out norlabs.org/support to find out about other ways you can, be part of this work. All right. Love y'all. Appreciate you for coming by, and we'll talk soon. Stay blessed.